Welcome to episode 22 of the Rebel Army podcast, the official podcast of Cork City Football Club. And this week we talk to another club legend. Welcome back to another episode of the Rebel Army podcast, joined as always by Aaron Howie. How are you?
Not too bad now, Stephen. How are you?
Pretty good. Great wins for the club over the weekend.
It's a brilliant weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, and great goals as well.
Yeah, a lot of great goals. Yeah, we had two brilliant goals from Cahill, a nice finish from Jack, and then a halfway line screamer on a debut in the women's team. So,
fantastic.
As weekends go in the world of Cork City, that was one of the better ones.
It was nice to get a win over Wexford as well, because we've had kind of two draws where we should have won really against them.
Yeah, like the earlier game in the season down there in particular, like we scored early on and we were like, oh, brilliant, capitalise on that. We didn't. This time around it was actually the other way around, because they scored early on and it was probably one of our better performances. As you said, the great goals, like Cahill's first finish was class as it is, and that's probably getting overlooked a bit because of how good the second goal was.
The second one has kind of gone a bit viral. I've seen it, I don't know I've seen it on TikTok by different accounts this stage, but anyway.
Like, we were over the opposite side to where the camera was in the stand, and it looked great from there, and it wasn't until I saw it on the camera I was like, oh my God, it's even better than I thought it was. But like the first goal he got, how many times do you see a ball like that come over the top and someone gets a foot on it and blasts it over or hits it wide, or like I said it there, that's actually getting overlooked how good that was, because the second goal was so good.
And he's not long back from injury, like
yeah.
You know, just 2 or 3 games in at this stage, like it's only his second start, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have hampered his ability in any way anyway.
Yeah, God, no. I mean, when you think of it there now, the hype around Yamin Lamal, which is just he's only a couple of months younger than Cahill. I know he's 16 in the Euros.
It's his birthday actually over the weekend, yeah.
So he's 16, he's 17 in July.
Yeah.
Cahill was 17 in March.
Yeah,
so
they're around the same.
There's about 4 months between them. But Cahill's goal was actually a better goal than Yamal's goal against France. Because Yamal's goal hit the post. No, it was a great goal, don't get me wrong. Unbelievable goal. And obviously it's a semi-final of a European Championship.
Yeah.
High stakes. But I'm just saying, like, it's brilliant that we have a young player of that talent coming through.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing a lot of the Irish fan accounts and stuff like that take notice of him as well.
It's not just, it isn't just Cork City fans.
From Cork City at this stage. It's an Irish loving now that they've taken on. I've seen a lot of different say this guy is
there's fans of other clubs, to be honest.
Yeah, they're all keeping an eye on them.
I see the notifications. It's funny when a goal goes up like that and the Twitter notifications come in and it's fans of clubs in the UK or something tagging, being like, hey, make a bid, watch this fella. You know, like,
yeah. But there's probably a lot of, I mean, you know, we were talking to a couple of people over the last few weeks there about how transfers work these days. And like, there's I think Dermot brought it up in his interview, where there's like software now where they analyse players and all that. But I'd imagine even videos online of social gets people recognised nowadays.
It definitely catches the attention anyway. So
especially if you're in leagues that aren't on TV all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's an interesting one. Yeah, I'd wonder how much of a role social media and sort of the viral clips and virality plays in transfers and getting.
It's something that didn't exist in the game years ago, but now it's like constant. You see clips of guys, and even when somebody's rumoured with a club nowadays, somebody all of a sudden out of nowhere starts producing this highlights reel of the player.
I'd imagine it's something when the viral clips go up, the agents are loving it because I can send that now. Yeah. You're nearly doing work for them and
the agent
providing
probably
the
in the background is somebody doing all video clips.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Coming out with a different name in the account. Yeah, but it was a great win and 15 points clear at the top now.
Yeah, mad, isn't it? Now, I know Athlone have a game in hand, but you'd still rather have the points. So 15 points is a bit mad. And we were just talking there before we started this. We dropped a couple of points in games as well that we should have won. We could very easily be 20 odd clear here, which is a bit mad.
In particular, there was a few at Turner's Cross where we were 1-0 up and we gave away goals in the second half.
Wexford, actually, funnily enough. There was a spell of a couple of games. Was it like 3 draws or 4 draws? There was 3 draws.
Like we were drawing more at home than we were away nearly.
Yeah. And it's been a very long season now to think back of it, like, hasn't it?
And we haven't even started the cup yet.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it, like.
Yeah.
But no, 15 points. And the other thing that stands out to me is the difference in goal difference. So we have 29
absolutely insane.
29 goal difference. I think the next, one of them is 7.
Yeah, I think that's the next closest to us.
Yeah, and I think there's more than half the teams are minus.
Yeah.
So that's probably because of us.
Probably. Well, if you look at the numbers.
If you look at the numbers, like somebody has to be getting goals from somewhere, like, but they're probably beating each other as well. And
we've conceded so few goals as well. Like there's been so many clean sheets.
Brad has been phenomenal at goal as well this year. He saved us a few times as well. You know, a lot of the plaudits, I know we spoke about him a lot last week, but a lot of the plaudits go to the attacking players for scoring great goals, or even the defenders, Charlie and Keane were getting a lot earlier in the season as well. But like, you have to say, like, he's kept us in 1 or 2 games where
he
we
has,
could have probably
100%, yeah, himself. And I always feel bad when I put up a post about, you know, when the keeper's doing so well, like if you put up a post about Brad or the amount of clean sheets.
Yeah.
I also have to mention the defenders as well, because it's obviously it's down to them as well. But yeah,
and the 2 boys have been never present, have they? At the back on camera,
Keane and Charlie.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I don't even think they've missed.
I can't remember. They probably went off as a sub, like, but yeah.
Keane is actually up for Player of the Month.
I saw
the
that.
League's Player of the Month. Yeah, so
we've won another as well, have we? Have we 2?
No, we've won up for the Player of the Month. We had two each then in the Team of the Week. Had can't remember who it was. Greg and Evan, was it, in the men's one?
Yeah.
In the women's one, we had Shauna McCarthy and Niamh Cotter. So, again, a very successful weekend. Yeah,
speaking of the women, that was a big surprise. To go up to Peamount and beat them.
Do you know what? It's a great result. It was a surprise and it wasn't, because if you look at the previous results against Peamount over the last couple of years, then it's a surprise. But like this year, we've been really good this year. Peamount have probably been a bit underwhelming, particularly the last couple of weeks. But that's not to take away from
not at all.
The girls at all on Saturday. It was a brilliant game. In terms of the 2 new players, Freya and Una both started and both probably had the best debuts you can have. Freya scoring from the halfway line.
That goal by Freya, like that was brilliant, a great goal. Beckham-esque there, kind of like.
Yeah, and Una in goal as well. She faced a good few chances, and there was little things like, you know, just slowing down the play at the right time and stuff like that, and the sort of the dark arts, as Murph said in the post-match piece I did with him. But yeah, I know it was brilliant. Look, I was saying it to Stephen before we started recording this. There's been a lot of heavy defeats over the last couple of years to Peamount. I've actually been up there for 2 8-1 defeats, and there was another 8-1 defeat before that, which, as a side note there, 8-1 for such a random, uncommon score for it to happen 3 times against the same opposition in the same ground is a bit mad. But coming away from there on Saturday with...
You could see it meant a lot to them.
It did, yeah. And coming away with those 3 points, I think Jerry Desmond sent a stat on to James and Danny. That was our first time ever taking points from Peamount since the amalgamation. Whoa. So I think it was 17 straight losses.
Whoa.
So that really hammers home how big a result it was. And the best thing about it is, you know, whatever about an underdog story type thing, beating the team that you could never beat. It's well deserved. And based on this season, if we were playing them again next week or the week after, I'd back us to do it again. We've beaten Peamount. We've beaten the game changers at Turner's Cross, Shamrock Rovers. Like, we're well capable. And that's down to Danny and James, the players they have, the players they've recruited, and it's down to the girls as well, obviously. But yeah, it's brilliant. We're still in the hunt now for getting into the top half of the table, and we're on TV on Saturday. So what better way to capitalise on that than to beat Bows on TV, hopefully?
Hopefully. Like, that's brilliant to have the cameras back at the Cross as well, because obviously the men's team don't get any cameras this season, and not yet. In the Cup we might get a run.
Yeah.
If we get a big team.
We actually only had the first televised women's game from Turner's Cross on TG Car a couple of weeks ago. So for them to come back again, it's almost like a compliment. Do you know what I mean? That it's...
that's great.
We're worth seeing, and Turner's Cross is worth broadcasting from. So that's brilliant. So yeah, as I said, we beat Bows as well earlier in the season away. So hopefully we can do a double over them now as well.
And when we had Danny on to reflect the first kind of half of the season, kind of thereabouts a few weeks ago, and he did say, all right, that he was planning to make a few moves in the transfer when the transfer window opened, and it looks like it's starting to pay off now.
Yeah, there was actually bits we had to cut out because he nearly outright said who was
we
coming.
We could have lost players over him.
But yeah, no, it's and I suppose people always say, you know, you judge a manager and their recruitment. He brought in 2 players and they both had great games in their debut. So,
and that's going to lift the rest of them as well. Like,
exactly, yeah. And like, say now Freya Demonge, for example, she's a player that Danny's been watching for a while. I think he tried to get her in previously as well. And again, that goal, like, brilliant way to kick off the Cork City career.
Unbelievable. How did the underage teams get on over the weekend?
Yeah, so a couple of teams were off, but we still had a couple of games to report from. So the men's under-20s lost 2-1 to Shamrock Rovers in Bishopstown. Matthew Murray got the city goal there. The under-15s lost 4-0 on the road to Pats. Those were the Saturday games. And then on Sunday, the women's under-19s beat Cove 1-0 in Bishopstown. Manny Murray with the goal in that one. and the 14s beat Treaty 3-2 up in Mayfield.
The boys had a tough weekend, so the girls were a bit better.
Yeah, it's one of those weekends you're moving into the elite phase now, so the sort of it becomes a bit more competitive and
tested a bit more probably as well.
Yeah, like I think that's our first time playing Shamrock Rovers.
Takes a while to adjust to that kind of level, I'd say as well.
Yeah, I think that was actually the cup. Now that Rovers game, I think we have them in the league. Funnily enough, the exact same fixture in Bishopstown next Saturday. But moving into the business end of the season now, so things will get a bit tougher.
Well, this week on the podcast, we're bringing in another club legend. It's been a few weeks since we had one, actually.
Yeah, and he's another highly requested guest as well, so it's great to have him in.
And there's only a few people can claim that they scored a winner in a cup final for us, and this is one of them.
He's in an illustrious group there.
And he scored the first one. So, at this stage, you're probably guessing who it is. You should have an idea. Scored the winner in the 98 cup final. I think it's time to bring in Derek Coughlan. Welcome to the podcast, Derek.
Thanks, Stephen.
I know everyone will want to know about your time at City and stuff like that, but how did football start for you? I presume local level, schoolboys league?
Yeah, I suppose growing up, Stephen, Gaelic football and hurling were my number one.
Was it?
Yeah, so my dad won an All-Ireland in 73 and he won All-Irelands with Nemo. He's 7 or 8 county medals. So for me,
a lot of pressure on you, so to kind of get into the game, I'd imagine. Yeah,
I didn't feel like pressure. It was just I loved that I was with my dad. He was playing senior with Nemo. When I was a young fella, and I was like their little mascot. I'd be there around all the great players in Nemo, the Billy Morgans and the Stephen O'Briens and the Tony Nations, Jimmy Kerrigan, Shea Fahey's, all these people. So Dinny Allen. So I would have been around that dressing room all the time growing up, kicking the ball back to them from their ball getter, and so I would have really grown up in a GA background, but I started playing with Douglas Hall from I think it was under 8s, and then I moved to Casement at around under 13, 14 because I was in Crease and I started playing with my friends in Crease down at Casement. So that was from about under 13, 14 went to Casement.
And so like around that time then, did you have to decide I'm sticking with football, or were you still playing a bit of GA as well? Like what was happening?
So what happened, Stephen, is that I suppose we'll call it soccer. I normally call it football. Soccer was took second fiddle a bit, and when I didn't have a Gaelic match, or my dad might be driving me straight from a Gaelic match with Nemo to play with Casement or Douglas Hall at the time. So it really was my second choice back, or third choice back then, because probably hurling and Gaelic football would have been ahead of it. So that kind of went all the way up till I was maybe 17. I would have just played soccer with the club whenever there wasn't a Gaelic or hurling match. But I spent all my time out in the street down with my friends playing soccer.
On the road,
So that's where I got my contact time. It was through the street football,
And that was popular back then. Like, I mean, you don't see as much of it now. Street football, playing on the road, playing freaking concrete on concrete roads against maybe someone's driveway or whatever. That was the kind of way football was played in the 80s and 90s, and obviously earlier than that as well, like, wasn't it? Yeah,
and I think that was probably the way it was all around the globe, But I think what's happened in the last maybe 10, 20 years, street football and that natural contact time that you get from playing with your buddies and playing against different estates and those self-organised games, that has faded, and other countries have invested in structured football, which is the new contact time. So we haven't in this country yet, So I think that's a big reason for why we're falling behind, because the street football element with the Robbie Keanes, Damien Duffs when they were here, then they went to England. That's not really happening anymore, So it's all structured football is the new contact time,
It's the new contact time, like proper venues for them to play in and just turn up if they want to, even as well. Like, I suppose during the week with their pals or whatever, and they'll know that they can have the pitch all day if they want it or something like that.
Yeah, so it's something we really need to look at in this country. Street football helped produce all the great players in the past, because back then there was no real organised training. I never really trained as a footballer. Grown up, with Casement, like would you have one training session a week or two or something like that? Yeah, in the older years, but when we were younger, there was I don't remember ever doing any training with the soccer clubs. When I think I was 17, I got on the Munster Senior League Cork team, and that really was my first bit of coaching at 17 years of age, and I went to Brighton about 2 months later then. So really I went to England with very, very little coaching under my belt, you know.
To go from kind of a player that was only kind of dipping into it, whose main focus was in hurling and football, to then all of a sudden go to Brighton.
Yeah, it happened very fast. It came out of nowhere, really. I was Cork minor at the time. I suppose I was Gaelic. I was earmarked as a Gaelic footballer growing up. I felt I was probably a better Gaelic footballer than I was a soccer player, but that makes sense because I spent so much time playing it. So yeah, for me, I was very late. By the time I got coaching, I was 17 years of age, you know. So yeah, that's just the way it was back then. There wasn't much coaching around, you know. It was all street football really, and game time.
And how did Brighton come across you?
So the manager of that Cork team at the time, that youth's Cork team, was Liam O'Brien, and he was a scout for Nottingham Forest and Brighton. And he came to me and said, Derek, how would you like to make football your career? I said, I'd absolutely love it. At that stage, I'd been suspended from Nemo for playing a soccer game. So I was playing Cork minor at the time, and I hadn't played at Nemo in about 6 months beforehand, you know, because it was back in those days where you weren't allowed to play Gaelic football or play soccer. Going
back then?
Back then, I was 94, yeah. I was suspended for 6 months for choosing a soccer game, an All-Ireland soccer game up in Dublin, instead of...
Why? Because the two matches were clashing?
Yeah.
And you chose one over the other?
Yeah. So they were the times we were living in, you know.
Like, when you think of it, like...
Yeah,
they were losing on their own good players then for the sake of, you know... Yeah,
it had the opposite effect. If anything, at that stage, if I was starting to lean towards trying to become a professional footballer and make sport my career, that, I suppose, being suspended it nearly closed the door fully at that stage then, you know. So it had the opposite effect of, rather than saying you better start playing with us, it had the opposite effect. But there were the times we were living in back then, and I remember being in Crease 3 and we weren't allowed kicking football on the ground, you know. There was no soccer allowed in schools, you know. So at least that's starting to change. That's a bit different now, but we still have a long way to go to infiltrate the schools and make sure that the kids are getting the sport. That's their favourite sport, you know, because in this country, soccer is the most participated sport, and we need to give that to the kids, you know.
What was Brighton like then when you went over? Or was it a total kind of shock to the system, like something completely different?
Oh, you couldn't prepare for that, you know, for what, especially back then in the 90s, 94, it was, there was no internet, no mobile phones, there was landlines in the digs you were staying, that was about it. You might get a call once a week or something like that from that, but it was a different time, and you're going into the dressing room with men from all different backgrounds, and it's a tough environment, that professional football environment, you know. So I went over as a YTS, so a year as an apprentice, and then a year as a pro.
Any kind of famous players that played with you around the time?
Well, Liam Brady was manager, so he was Liam Brady signed me that time. He had come from Celtic, and Jimmy Case would have been his assistant, and Jerry Ryan, I think, who passed away recently. So Jerry, lovely man, and there was player wise, there was Mark Chamberlain, Oxlade Chamberlain's dad. He played for England. He was in midfield. Paul McCarthy was there from Cork, who also passed away tragically there. I don't know how many years ago it is now, but Paul was a great centre half, and he looked after the Irish lads. He was great to have. And then Steve Foster was the other centre half who played for Luton and England with the headband, so he was there as well. So yeah, there was a few good
learning for you, so to be around guys like that, like. Well,
especially for me, Steve, I was coming from nothing, you know, so I learnt everything over there, you know. I had to start from the scratch, and it was a dog-eat-dog world, and you were taking someone's, I suppose, livelihood is what everyone in the club is doing at the time. Everyone's trying to make their own way, you know. So it was quite a tough environment, and it was something you couldn't prepare for. But for me, I suppose I was homesick all the time, and it was a case of just get to the end of the week for the 2 years, you know.
And like at the end of a week, like would you ever get time to come home then in between, like, or probably too expensive, was it?
It was too expensive back then, yeah.
Like there was no Ryanair flights or anything like that.
And you'd have to go to a travel agent to book it or whatever. But yeah, it was, I probably would have got home at the summertime, and I got home one Christmas because I broke my foot. So I got home for 5 weeks, which was nearly, I never so happy to break my foot in one sense. There was a nice upside to breaking your foot. You got to come home to your people, you know?
Yeah. So, like, did you get much game time, like, in your year as a contracted, like?
Well, I obviously the youth. I was youth at the start, and then into the reserves. Playing the reserves every week, and then I started breaking into the first team, and I made my debut against Oxford. Not long before I came home, the club went through. Remember the club, the pitch. Remember they tore up the pitch. The Goldstone got.
Yeah.
The club went into serious difficulties, but for me, it was a case of it was a blessing because I just wanted to come straight home. There was other clubs interested, but I had just wanted to get home, and I said I'll go home, see what happens, and take it from there. You know, so it was the timing. Even though it was bad timing for Brighton, for me personally, it was. I just wanted to get home. I felt like I saw my 2 years. Let's go back and see what happens. And at that stage, I didn't know whether I was going to go back play GA. But when I got home, Dave Barry was there waiting for me to sign for Cork City. So, and he was a huge hero of mine.
But Dave Barry must also had a lot of kind of, I suppose, sympathy for you in terms of your predicament with the GA previously, because he was playing for City, but also, you know, playing for, you know, in All-Ireland finals for Cork at the time. Like, you know, he was obviously able to balance his life, but was probably thinking you were being penalised at a young age for what you were doing.
Yeah, no, I don't think Davey was taking me back for that I played GA, and he was totally 100% with Cork City, and there would have been no chance of playing Gaelic really.
Was Davey only after taking over at that stage?
Dave took over in '96, after Rob Hindmarsh, and he signed a lot of young players. Myself, Ollie, Noel Mooney, Brian Barry Murphy, Colin O'Brien was there already, Ollie Cal, Noel Hartigan. So he signed a lot of those young players and kept on to Dave Hills and brought Patsy back. Decky Daly obviously was there, Fergie O'Donoghue, John Caulfield, Pat Morley.
A lot of Cork-based players, but a lot of Munster-based as well, with like Valley Cahill and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Kelvin Flanagan, Stephen Napier from Tipperary. Yeah, so he definitely he combed Munster to make sure he got the recruitment right, and he sure did, you know.
So at this stage, did you have any regrets then about not playing anymore in England, you know, not kind of moving on up through the leagues or anything like that?
No, I suppose when I came back, I thought that, okay, look, I'm only 19 years of age coming back. I'm quite new in my soccer journey, you know. So it was a case of come back to Cork City, try and reestablish myself. And I did probably have that. I was harbouring that hope of going back to England.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was quite happy to be learning my trade with those players. Like coming back from Brighton, leaving the professional dressing room, the Liam Brady's, the Jimmy Cases, all these, Steve Foster, all these big names in the game. I thought it was going to be easier than it actually was when I came back, and I got a rude awakening when I came back from Brighton and realised I'm going to have to work very hard to break into this team, you know. So. With Dave Hill, Decky Daly, Fergie O'Donoghue, all these players, it was harder than I expected, and I was really amongst top quality players in that Cork City dressing room.
And committed lads as well, like weren't they? Like they were real battlers as well. Like they pride in the jersey.
Yeah, pride, Stephen, is a great word, but I suppose integrity is something that I learned from that dressing room. The integrity that I came back to in that Cork City dressing room was massive, and standards, expectations. When we went out to a training session, we were the best of buddies, but we felt like every training session was a trial, you know, to who's going to start at the weekend. And every single session was a trial for that starting lineup, you know. So the integrity that was in that dressing room from those men, and it's something it's the biggest thing I've probably taken on from that era is that integrity. And it's something that when I'm coaching, it's trying to be that great teammate is huge, you know.
But Dave really transformed the club. Obviously, he had been successful under Noel O'Mahony, kind of dipped a bit, didn't get relegated or anything like that, but kind of lost a bit of momentum. The crowds kind of had dipped as well, I think, in the cross. But then there was this kind of passion coming back into the club. And I suppose the big one then was 97, 98 and the cup run, because City had never won a cup before. And like that run was phenomenal, wasn't it?
Yeah, that run was something else. And I suppose back then to win a league from Cork, and you're travelling the old roads on a bus or in cars after work, it was a serious challenge trying to win a title. And I suppose the cup, then bringing the cup back, that was if we hadn't won that cup, it would have been an awful shame because that team deserved so much more. You know, there was such quality in that side that if we hadn't won something, it would have been a shame. You know,
and like I think I was saying to one of the other guests, like, you know, that semi-final always sticks in my mind against Athlone because like there was such a crowd came from Cork. Like it felt like this was a huge occasion, and for the first time, you know, for soccer in the city, that it felt like we were not just going to Dublin for an event, we were going somewhere else. You know, whereas the GA always went to the likes of Thurles and stuff like that, where, you know, the kind of people that were half interested turned up at the Athlone game as well. You know, a huge crowd.
Yeah, I think that was probably the turning point that brought all of Cork behind Cork City. As you said, it went through a tough patch until Dave came in, and Dave, obviously we moved from Bishopstown back to Turner's Cross. Dave brought in the red and white jerseys, which was brilliant at the time to try and galvanise the whole of Cork behind, because as you said, it had dipped. Yeah. Bishopstown never really worked.
No. You owned Bishopstown for a while.
No, I came back in 86. Yeah. So I think Davey deserves huge credit for how he turned around something that could have had a totally different outcome, you know, and he really got the public behind him, his name, his profile, his quality as a sportsman. I think he deserves huge credit for that, you know?
And he was a young coach as well. Like, people forget that. Like, when he took over, like, he was, you know, in his mid-30s.
Yeah, because I played with him when I came back first. He was still playing. I remember playing. I played up in Home Farm. He played, I think it was a League Cup game up in Home Farm, and Dave was fantastic. And he used to take part in all the sessions as well. So he was still registered as a player when I came back first in 96.
Going to the final in, I mean, the first final wasn't a great game, or the first game. Obviously, it went to a replay. Nowadays it wouldn't, but back it wasn't great. It was a huge crowd at it, but it wasn't great. But like, how did you feel after that? Did you feel that you left it there, or after the first match? Like, what was the mood in the dressing room?
Yeah, I suppose when you're playing the game, especially a game of that enormity, you're not worried about whether it's a good game, bad game, indifferent. All you just care. And I suppose as a defender, you need a clean sheet, you know. Yeah. So we weren't concerned about the type of game it was, because cup finals can always be like that. That teams just don't want to make mistakes, so it's safety first a lot of the time, because it's a one-off, you know. It's a winner takes all format, so it's different to league games. But I felt that we were the slightly better team that day. I remember I came close with a header. Just went a couple of feet over the bar, and I remember afterwards I'm going to get one next week. Yeah. We're going to do this next week. I remember coming back, we were confident. We were confident in the build-up. I think the first game was a Sunday, I think, and the second game was a Saturday.
That's right. Yeah, it was a Saturday evening, the second one, wasn't it? I think we had enough, like 5 or 6.
So that week we trained hard that week, and personally, I felt very confident going up. I felt that we had them, we had the measure of them, you know. And especially with the fans, when you see Cork fans up in their hometown, when you see the amount of Cork fans that gave us that extra bit of oomph that we needed, you know.
So explain to me what it was like to get the winner, because that goes down in folklore, like to get the score that head, or I mean, I think there was 9,000, maybe more there on the day I was in Daly Mount. I think, you know, you were still young at the time, like you were only 19, 20,
Yeah, I was 20. I'd say I was 21. Yeah, I was 21. It was amazing. Obviously, it's still here. It's something that I probably picked up as part of my life now. You know, that winning that cup and obviously scoring the goal. It's something that's always going to stay with me, and and how lucky I am to have that as part of my life. You know, because I know it means so much to so many people, and it's meant so much to my family, meant so much to me, obviously, but the people of Cork. It was a really special feeling, and I suppose that the adrenaline dump I got when the goal went in, I think there was still about 20 minutes left. And I remember going, oh Christ, I felt weak after scoring. And they were coming straight at us with attacks, and I was like, we have to just keep a clean sheet here. We cannot let them score, you know. So that was what was going through my head after the initial celebration of scoring, you know.
I'd imagine people still come up to you to this day and probably say, I remember that game, do they?
Yeah, mostly people like Aaron's vintage who were saying I was 5, I was 4, I was 7. Yeah, so a good way of making me feel old, you know. So, but yes, and there was a couple of times people come, you made me €100, I drew down for first goal scorer. So yeah, got a couple of free points out of it over the years.
Oh, bad. Yeah. So the following season, then I suppose you kind of went on a bit of a title challenge. You didn't get there, but you won the League Cup and stuff in '99, and I think we second in the league as well.
Yeah, that same Pats team that we were up against, they were an extremely they were an excellent team, you know, and they were tough opponents, and we pushed them all the way.
Yeah, they're really good players, like the likes of Hawkins and stuff like that, Ozam and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah, they had fantastic Trevor Malloy, who was a very hard player to mark. They had brilliant players, but we took them to the end. We pushed them close. I done my ACL, so I missed the second half of that season. I was after getting on the Irish under 21 team after that 98 win, the cup win, and then I done my ACL. So that was in 99.
But it must have been fantastic to line up for the country, though.
Oh, it was things dreams are made of. Stephen, I never played growing up. Obviously, I didn't. I was.
So you didn't go through youth. Like a lot of them would have played for under 16 schoolboys football or whatever for Ireland. Like, but
even the people I was over in Brighton with, there was John Ryan, Alan Hughes, Gareth Doyle. They were all players that played with the Irish team on the way up, 15s, 16s, 17s, whatever. And for me, it was never really on my radar. There was no ever talk of it. So I suppose for me breaking in at under 21 and playing in European qualifiers and starting those games was, I suppose it didn't happen hugely at the time. Myself and Brian Barry Murphy made that squad. Yeah. So like it wasn't something that was happening wholesale. So to break through from League of Ireland, it was, and it wasn't just a token. I was starting those games, so it meant an awful lot to me. And I suppose wearing the jersey for the national anthem, I've pictures at home of I think I'm singing the national anthem, and the pride I felt was hard to explain, you know.
And what the listeners, especially some of the younger listeners, mightn't realise is like the under 21 side would have been quite strong back then, because the senior team, it's like if you were 17, 18, you weren't automatically brought onto the senior team, even if you were playing in the top leagues in England, because they had strength and depth. Because like around that time, you're talking the Mick McCarthy kind of going into the 2002 Saipan era, like in the run up to that, Brian Kerr had a load of success at underage level as well, didn't he?
Yeah, well, the exception to that was Damien Duff and Robbie Keane were fast tracked from. Yeah, they were a couple of years younger than me, and they were brought. They didn't play the under 21. They went straight up to the senior team. So yeah, no, there was Stephen McPhail was playing. Kevin Kimban was on that team. I'm trying to think who else was there.
Yeah, because
Colin Hawkins was
around the same time, didn't they kind of come third or fourth in the world at the under-20s or something like that?
Well, I'd got on the under-20 team. We played Belgium over in the old Heysel Stadium. Brian Kerr's under-20 team. I actually got on that went to Malaysia. But once I came back from Brighton, I left Cork to go to Brighton at the end of fifth year. So I didn't do my leaving cert. So I came back and did my leaving cert in Tremore Road in Stefan Nefa at 20. So it was just when that Malaysia World Cup where they came third and where that was happening, I was doing my leaving cert, so I pulled out of that under-20 team that was going to Malaysia. You know?
Talk about bad like as in bad timing for you, like that the leaving cert will clash with the same thing.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. People have these kind of dilemmas all the time. It's just when it's football, it's probably more pronounced, you know.
So like when you got the ACL, then like your career was really going up, getting capped for the country under 21s, scoring the winning goal in the cup final. That must have been a huge setback. Yeah, it was a huge setback because Colin O'Brien had done it the year before me, and Decky Daly had done it the year before that. So I was working off their two notebooks that they had for their recovery. Yeah. They had journals that they had kept, and I was working. I used them to base a lot of my recovery on. But I suppose when it happened first, I was absolutely flying. I'd scored against Kiev in Europe as well after once we got to the Cup Winners' Cup from 98 Cup. So I had I'd scored in that game and we won. I got the second goal. We won 2-1 at home against Kiev, and then for me to do my cruciate, it was heartbreaking, and it was, I suppose, we had been with the under 21s. We used to play against the senior team. Like what you're saying, all this Mick McCarthy's team, Roy Keane was playing, Steve Staunton, all these, Niall Quinn up front. And I remember Niall Quinn wrote an article mentioning myself and Damien Duff as the upcoming stars. And then I think it was a week later, I think he cursed me with that article on the Times, you know, because it cursed me because the ACL went in and that was it, you know. How long did it take you to recover from that?
think I was back playing about 10 or 11 months. I think Roy Keane was out at the exact same time with his ACL back then as well. So it was about 10 or 11 months. But it was every day. It was 5 days a week at physio and 6 days a week in the gym in Rochestone Park. So it was a long journey back, but it was worth it. You know, it's something you really have to be bullheaded on with your recovery training. You know,
be easy to just pack it in at that stage. Like if you didn't have the mentality, like
you could see how some people it mightn't be worth it for some people. You know, that to watch you to pain, you'd have to bring a spare t-shirt into the physio every day, because they're getting that bend back, that flex back in your knee, so the sweat's pouring off you as the physio's working on you every day. So it's a lot. I know Derek Crowley's after coming back, and he looks like he's nearly come back a better player. He looks fantastic.
Yeah, he does.
I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to be like maybe in 6 months' time when he has maybe a year on his belt from the recovery, you know.
But you were part-timers at the time. So did you then have to kind of say, well, I'm going to have a career outside of this as well, because just in case I don't make it, despite people talking, Niall Quinn or whoever talking about me, I'll have to have another career just as a backup plan as well.
Yeah, and I suppose that came a couple of years afterward, but I suppose the ACL did wake me up that I'll have to be coming up with a plan B, you know. So and that's when I ended up joining the Airport Police Fire Service in Cork in 2000. So I started and I spent 20 years there, but that was probably part of the reason that
just in case I get another setback.
Yeah,
you kind of have to have a backup plan.
You do. It's a precarious industry to be in, you know, and have all your eggs in that basket. Anything can happen, you know, so you need that bit of luck.
When you came back to City, you came back for a while, but then you went to Bowes for a season or two, did you?
Went to Bowes in 2000, and it was the changeover season from the summer soccer season. So it was, I think it was 2002 I went to Bowes,
Why was it that you left City?
Not my choice. Not my choice.
Okay.
Liam Murphy was manager at the time, and I think I played every single game the year before. I was captain.
Yeah.
And Ollie Cal was there as well. He played I think the two of us played every single game, or close to it. And I met Liam then before a couple of weeks after the season ended, and he gave me an offer to sign back up, but I think it was a third of my wages less than what I was on.
Okay.
So for me,
didn't make sense.
Well, I suppose it was nearly it hurt, I suppose, a bit, you know, to be doing so, like at that stage in my career. I wasn't looking for more money and anything like that. I just wanted the same contract again, but the contract was less. Yeah. And for me, I felt that was,
and you were still young,
morally, the moral aspect of it, I felt, well, obviously, like, I'm obviously not worth what and that's football. Managers have different ideas what they want to do recruitment wise, and for me, I met him over in the Grange car park. I met him in his car over in the Grange car park, and it was I was heartbroken getting out of that car and walking back to my mum and dad's house, and I was like a ghost, I'd say, coming in the door, you know. So it was a tough moment for me, because I never saw him. My ancestors from Cork. I've no relations outside of Cork. Yeah. Everything from, when I go back through the family tree, it's Cork, and my dad has an All-Ireland medal for Cork, and everything was Cork for me. So I never foresaw myself playing with another team in Ireland, you know. So it was when I went home that night, I just turned to my mum and dad and I said, what am I going to do?
And what was the advice? What did your dad say? Like, because obviously he had been won All-Ireland and everything, like.
I think it was the next day. I think Dave Hill contacted me, or I was talking to Dave Hill, or maybe Dave Hill asked me, and he had been with Bowes under Roddy Collins. Yeah. And Stephen Kenny had come in, and I got a phone call the next day from Stephen Kenny. And once he heard, I told Dave that I can't sign that contract from a moral point. I don't want any more money or anything like that, but I just was, you want to feel wanted, you know, you want to feel your value, and
did you feel like when they reduced the contract, it was a way of kind of being a nice way of kind of trying to push out? Did it feel like that without kind of saying you're not wanted? Yeah. That you go of your own accord, kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's how you'd feel in any job. If anyone in their job tomorrow got told, you can stay here, but we're going to take a good bit of your wages off. That's, I suppose you're not going to be fully in it then, and for me, I just felt from a moral point of view, it just went against my moral compass that would I play well under that circumstances. So yeah, for me, it was, and I'm great friends with Liam. Like Liam had his job to do. He has to pick a squad, and he has to make the money work, and he might be short a player in this position, that position, so he has to make tough choices when it comes to that. So there was never any hard feelings. Myself and Liam were great, get on great, and it's just one of those things in football. But for me, it meant, okay, what am I going to do now? And that was when Stephen rang me the next day, and I met him. I think probably could have been the following day. And the minute I met Stephen, it was, I'm in.
And what was it like to play for Bohs, so playing for a Dublin team?
It was fantastic, Stephen. Once I got over the thought of it, the thought of it was the hard part, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know anything about Dublin. I was always those Dublin, that was the mentality down here, and I remember my dad drove me up. We were playing some friendly in Kildare, and pre-season friendly. My dad drove me up, and the minute I went into the dressing room, it was a fantastic dressing room with unbelievable players, with the likes of Kevin Hunt, Glenn Crowe, Colin Hawkins, Fergal Harkin, Bobby Ryan, Mark Rutherford,
like
Damien
really,
Lynch,
the likes of Rutherford and Glenn Crowe, like they were stalwarts of the game, like at that stage, like it
was a fantastic group, fantastic dressing room. Paul McNally, there was just good characters, and fantastic footballers, and then obviously managed by a fantastic coach in Stephen Kenny,
And he was a young coach, I'd say, at the time.
Very young. 38 maybe or something. I'm not sure, but he was young.
But you went to win the league that time with them?
Yeah, won the league that year, and it was the football we played was something else. So yeah, going up was hard, but once I got in, the lads took me under their wing, and they slagged me coming from Cork, and I used to fly up and down to training twice a week. Fly up for matches.
It was a flight from Cork to Dublin with Ryanair at the time.
Yeah, and I was working 40 hours a week, shift work in the Airport Police Fire Service.
You didn't have to worry about security. You could just kind of rock up, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, the lads used to slag with Glenn Crowe used to love when because sometimes I used to have to leave training early, so I might come off a night shift up in the airport and get on the Air Ireland flight with the propellers, get a bit of a sleep in that noisy plane journey, fly up, walk down to Alsa Park where we trained in Dublin Airport, and then maybe I might have to leave maybe half an hour to catch the flight back before the session ended. And Glenn Crowe used to love Derek. He's after flashing his lights because the planes used to fly right over the pits where we train. Derek used to go. He flashed the lights at you. So it was it was an unusual, but we made it work. Stephen made it work. I made it work, and obviously it was tough. I had to use all my leave for matches, for training. The lads in the Airport Police Fire Service were brilliant. All my colleagues, they used do cover shifts for me, and I'd pay them back and swap shifts, and it was a lot of logistically it was hard, but it was a fantastic experience, and I've no regrets because it was a brilliant time in my career, And
it was a different time back then because the current City team, they don't need to worry about juggling, that work career balance kind of thing, like like you going in doing shifts, swapping shifts. It must have felt like you were always working in many ways. Between the two, like. Yeah,
it took its toll. It was you can't do it long term, and it was changing. It was starting to get, all the lads were professional at Bohs. I was doing it myself and Tony O'Connor, Taki, he was another great player, great guy. I think it was me and him were
the only part-timers.
Yeah.
You stayed there for about 2 years, was it, and came back?
I don't think it was even the full 2 years. I came back to, I'd still time, but I got injured the second. I got a year off the Airport Police for a year leave of absence.
Okay. Yeah.
So I moved up to Dublin for, I think I was there about 6 months of my second season with Bohs, and I had got injured, and I think Ken O'Mann and Jason McGuinness were playing, and I spent a few weeks on the bench, and I was living up in Dublin on my own with the dog, and my life was back here in Cork, so I just said to Stephen, I'm not going to sit around on the bench picking up a wage. Look, there's no point in me being up here. So, and then Pat Dolan got wind of it, and he was interested in bringing me back to Cork City, So
it must have felt good though to come back to City then.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was
coming home.
Yeah, it was coming home. Everything about it, back where I belong. But I that time at Bohs was part of my journey, and it was a fantastic. I wouldn't change it, but obviously coming back to to live in Cork and to be part of Cork City again was it was great.
But the Pat Dolan era, there was something kind of, again, just like Dave Barry previously, he energised the fan base again, didn't he? There was his charisma or something. There was hype everywhere. Like, he was a bit of a hype man for the club in many ways, wasn't he, Pat?
Yeah, he was kind of doing Howie's job before Howie was doing it, wasn't he? Without
before social media.
Before social media, he was
everywhere.
He was everywhere. He was brilliant for the club. He really he brought it up. He brought it up another level from a professional point of view. He was. I think Pat was key to coming in at that stage in the club's journey. He was the right man at the time to really. He was kind of magnetic in his personality, and he really brought the attention to the club. You know,
they were another phenomenal team, though. Probably very different to the previous kind of City team that you had gone back into in the mid-90s. This was probably a younger side, kind of very ambitious, I'd imagine.
Yeah, no fear, I think, in that side too. There wasn't, like, the players had come from, a lot of players had been in England, they came back, and there was another, again, like that, the previous teams, the characters were huge there, which is very important. A person's character is massive, because it impacts the culture and the environment, you know. So if you've enough strong, good team leaders like the Colin O'Briens, this world, and Billy was there as well. Billy Woods was there at the time. Like, you've got people who have, and then like the young players like Alan Bennett and Neil Horgan, who would have touched with some of those older players and got that integrity and got from the older players, you know. So there was a good transition there, and those players, when you think of the likes of the players that weren't probably starting at the start, when you have the Roy Donovan's coming in and Shane Long's even in that area, and
couldn't even get a game. Like,
and then Roy went on to be an absolute fantastic footballer, you know, and I think epitomised what we were doing. He was young, he was fearless, he brave as a lion, you know, on the ball, off the ball, and that has a knock-on effect to people around you. You know, when you're in a team, in a project, whatever it is, in any industry, when you've people like that on your team, other people gravitate towards that and they emulate it, you know. So I think we had fantastic characters in that side also, you know. That
2005, you know, winning season, like, must have been great to be around it. I know you probably didn't play as probably much as you'd want to, but it was still probably great to be part of it.
Yeah, I think I played a different, that was my last year, 2005, I was 28, but I think I played a different role than I would have done in the years previous. I was part-time, the lads were all full-time, but I felt I played a different, maybe like the big brother role nearly, and just that galvanising person in the team. I was a good sub that year, and that would be something that I would have been previously, but that year I think when Damon Richardson came in, he would have leaned on me for different things, and I liked what was happening in the team. I liked the way we were playing. I loved the whole squad had an impact. It was a really squad environment. And yeah, I that's one thing I suppose I'm proud of, that I was a good sub that year, you know. Because it's not always easy to do. Being the sub isn't always easy to do that, and I think that year I did that, you know, which is something I'm proud of.
Was Damien very different to Pat?
Very different, yeah, very, very different.
In what way?
I suppose Pat was controlling. Pat needed to be in control of everything that was going on. He kind of micromanaged a lot, whereas Damien would have been the opposite to that. He kind of trusted the lads to go do what they do. He saw that the lads were that we were very capable of playing outstanding football, and he knew our desire. He knew what way we were off the ball. Like that, as you know, off the ball, on the ball, you have to have both sides. And Damien knew what he had on in the dressing room, and he I think he got the best out of us. You know, he encouraged us to be at our best, and I think we were, you know.
So was your last game for the club the game against Derry where we won the league?
The cup final.
Oh, the cup final.
But I was on the bench.
So when was the last time you played?
The last time I was on the pitch was the game against Derry, and I came on the last 10 or 15 minutes. I can't remember how long.
Not a bad way to finish up.
No, not a bad way. It wasn't in my plans. I wasn't planned to finish.
You weren't thinking that at the time, so it wasn't an emotional thing for you.
I had another year. I had another year of my contract after the following year, you know. So
you were just enjoying the celebrations like everyone else the same night, like I'd imagine, not even thinking about I'm not coming back.
No, I didn't think of it once. I knew it was there, but I suppose the way I had to do it, because I was back doing the 40 hours with the airport shift work, and it was just, it took its toll. And I don't know, and the fact I suppose I wasn't starting, it was just made it even harder, you know, traveling around the country, traveling around Europe and European stuff. And if you're not starting, that has a different slant to it, you know. And I suppose at the time it was becoming full time here, so it was a case of I'd have to give up the job or the football. One or the other, one had to go, really, you know. So.
And did you have to, like, do you know the times where when you came back, did you go on any of those European runs? Because there was loads. Like we were around for the Intertoto Cup that time.
Yeah, I was there for the Intertoto. I was there for Kiev. I know my memory, Stephen, is poor, but we went to Switzerland another time.
Great memories, I'd imagine. Like,
yeah, great trips. Jerusalem was a fantastic. We went to Maccabi Haifa. We went to Israel, but we went to Jerusalem. On day trips and stuff, and it was a really, really. It's an experience that very few people get to play in Europe.
Yeah. You know? About that era, they were just constantly in Europe. It felt like every season it was nearly a given that Cork City were in Europe. We took it probably for granted.
We did take it for granted, because my son now is 14. My kids are 16, 14, 11. They're talking about looking forward to European games. Yeah. So hopefully it'll happen sooner, like, before they're too old, you know.
Like at 28, it's young enough to retire. Like,
yeah, very young.
Tough decision to make, I'd say.
It was. If I thought about it, I kind of went with my gut on it, Stephen. Like I'd make a lot of decisions on how my instinct and how things feel, and at the time it had to go one way or the other. The Airport Police Fire Service was a secure, pensionable, very good career, you know. Yeah. So it was very hard to give that up, especially and it was probably the right move. If I had gone full time, like the way that the league crashed and the way everything went belly up. A few years later, you know, so
in a matter of about 3 years, really. Yeah.
So I just went with my instinct, and do I have any regrets? Not at all, because that's the way it needed to happen at the time. You know, I couldn't really stretch myself for much longer. I was already doing it for a long time, and I suppose the likes of Decky Daly's era, they spent their career semi-professional, and then the likes of Liam Kearney, the next gen, I was like stuck in that kind of middle where, like, you could spend your whole career as a full timer or as a semi-pro. So I was kind of between two stools, you know.
Did you stay in the game then? Did you go to somewhere like Carricktool or something like that? Was there?
No, did nothing.
You didn't play much league or anything?
Nothing. There was like Waterford, Cove. There would have been a lot of clubs looking for me to play, but
because Cove would have been part-time, like, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it didn't. I had done it, I suppose, after winning the league, winning cups, winning League Cup, playing in Europe. It didn't.
You didn't want to drop back.
Yeah, I just didn't. I suppose it became, as you said, it was like I was working two jobs. It became a kind of a job to me, and I wanted to maybe take a break from it. I remember reading something a couple of years ago when Alan Bennett retired. Actually, I was telling about an article I had read from Eric Cantona, who said that he had to just cut football out of his life. It was like a drug. He had to just have a straight break from it. And I didn't know I was doing that, but I did. I just totally, I kind of switched off from football for 4 or 5 years, you know.
Just parked it.
Just parked it, yeah.
Did you go as a fan or anything then?
No.
Just walked away.
Walked away and and maybe that's what I needed to do.
Yeah,
I didn't, but then I suppose when Liam Liam Kearney was looking after the Cork City under 17s. When was that? That was, I don't know how many years ago that was, but he brought me in as assistant with him and that, and
did you get?
And that was the start. I got the ball. Actually, it might have been before. Actually, it was before that, because Mark Herrick, who's a great friend of mine and fantastic
90s team.
Fantastic player, unbelievable midfielder, brilliant in the air and the tackle on the ball. He was fantastic, and he set up Head Right Sports, you know, which is a heading training device, and he brought me in with him on that, and that was probably my reintroduction into football, and then going with Liam in the 17s, and then I suppose there was an article I read in the Examiner that Tony O'Donoghue, would be a good friend of mine, he had liked it or put it up on some social media, and I'd seen it, and I got on to Tony straight away saying, Tony, this is a scandalous article. It was an article that the League of Ireland should be happy with its lot, from a horse racing journalist. And I said to Tony, I feel like writing a response. And he says, why don't you? And that night I wrote a piece I sent it to the Examiner and published it, and that was that was another part of me getting back into football. Just
did you start writing for the Examiner for a while?
Writing for the Examiner for a while, yeah. So that was kind of brought me back in, you know.
So the bug was back then.
The bug was well and truly back, yeah.
So as the years progressed, then you started coaching obviously with City's academy, but then a job came up with the FAI then.
Well, I suppose I left. I took redundancy in the Airport Police Fire Service maybe about 4 years ago now, and I went to UCC and studied. I did a HDIP in coaching and coaching psychology in UCC. It was during COVID, and then a job came up as a player development coordinator with the FAI and the ETB course, and I went in as player development coordinator there with Dave Hill. So, and then I stayed there for maybe about 18 months in that role, and then moved into development officer for the women's and girls in Cork for another 18 months. So I've just after leaving that role about maybe 6 weeks ago now, and gone with Dennis Bean and Tim Moore with Cover Coaching and 3v3 Ireland. So yeah, there was, from having nothing got to do with it, I'm neck deep in it now. Yeah.
But I'd say even being a development officer with the women's game was a fantastic period because the women's team got into the World Cup around the same time.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
It was a perfect time, and you did a lot of videos that kind of went viral and stuff around the time. So I'd say you got a great buzz out of it.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and a great team. Like I was working with Alan Bennett again, which was amazing. Being back with Alan, John Cotter as the high performance coach. I coached in the Centre of Excellence with him, and then you Ray Claffey and Nick Harrison. So it was a great team around Cork, and I really enjoyed working with them. And then I moved again recently out of it, you know.
So back with Dennis Bean. So it's odd connections with Cork City. It's like you've never really moved away. Yeah. You know, Mark Herrick, then back with Liam.
Yeah, and I was with John O'Flynn then with Cove Ramblers and Darren Murphy when Darren was looking after Cove. So I was in it. It's a small
it's like you're an extended family or something like that you kind of keep together, or you bring each other back into the fold in different ways or something like that.
Yeah, I think when you win the top title or trophy in the country, there's a brotherhood. Yeah, there's a special bond between players who've battled together and come out the other side on top. You know, there's something special, always something special in that connection between the players. When we meet, it's like we've never been away. You know. Yeah, because I see a lot of you kind of sit together at the cross and stuff like that as well, and it's nice to see. Ah, it's great. It's brilliant. And I suppose even the Jubilee, when we went up to the FAI Cup final last year for the Jubilee anniversary, just being with those great men, it was nice to experience us all being together again, you know.
So explain the new thing that you're at. It's am I right in saying there's like 3v3 football involved?
Yeah,
how does that work? So different to 5-a-side, obviously it's kind of smaller pitches or something, is it?
Yeah, so what it is, Dennis Bean, who started off with little kickers, he's done brilliant. He set up little kickers here, who Linda, his wife, now runs, but he also has Cover Coaching Munster, the franchise to that, and the 3v3 Ireland franchise, which is in Europe is massive. There's 3v3 Norway, 3v3 Spain, and they're air pitches, so You've got a perimeter around the pitches, so the ball's in play all the time. You use a futsal, so the ball's never gone out, and players are getting touch after touch after touch after touch, and it's it really is a fantastic format. These small-sided games is the future. You know, we need small-sided games for players in their development, and that's what we're doing, and we've a lot of exciting things coming.
And other sports have it. You know, other sports have professional people training.
Yeah, when you look at the GA, I think they've a development officer for every, 10, 15, I don't know how many development officers they have, but in Cork we've 3 development officers, you know. So, and in the clubs you're looking at volunteers, but the volunteers, and it's something I never recognised as a young player, the work that goes in as a volunteer. It's something I really, really appreciate now, what people did for me when I was a young fellow, when I was playing, when I was an adult playing, the volunteers, the work that they do now, I really appreciate that. But I think the volunteers in soccer they've been given a tough end of the stick. Like, you know, when you see they're trying to copy what the GA volunteers do, but the GA volunteers they've clubhouses, they get dinner dances, they have award ceremonies, they can go for coffee, they can go for a pint with their fellow coaches. For us here, it's the volunteers have nothing. You know, I think at Bar Carrigaline, does anyone have a
proper clubhouse,
a venue that can provide even a proper sit down here, a cup of coffee, Middleton, or have a good setup. But that's something that is a huge problem for us, you know, and this industry needs attention right now, because whatever what other sports have in it, what do other countries do in football? They've got people employed throughout their country, you know, and it's something that we need help here from the government to, if we want to qualify for European tournaments, if we want to qualify for World Cups, we need to address the problem, which is we need to get into schools. We need more contact time for local players, you know. It needs it now, you know, and I suppose that's what was so disappointing with the Oireachtas committee meeting, the couple of Oireachtas committee meetings that we had, that Mark Cannon brought out this fantastic football's pathway plan. The staff put massive in the FAI, massive hours into helping get that up and running, and then when it comes that it got taken under our feet because of the Oireachtas appearance, you know, and the stuff that happened there. So that was very disappointing, because we had a proper plan in place, and hopefully it'll be aired up again soon, and we'll get it off the ground, but we need it now, you know, and the government need to help us now.
And it comes up a lot of conversations now at the moment because of the Euros, when you see countries that are smaller than us qualifying. I think is Slovenia. You look at the likes of Croatia's obviously the one that's always talked about. How do they qualify all the time? How do they get to finals, semi-finals with a smaller population? But that comes back to the support probably of, you know, government funding and stuff like that. I mean, you know, they probably don't. I know they have basketball and a few other sports in those, but it's not like the GA in many ways.
No, but I suppose we're talking. This is football, probably the biggest industry in the world. If you look at it, you know, it's a huge. It's a proven product. And if the government do invest in our industry, they will get returns
even from tourism and everything.
Yeah, it's not like they're taking a punt at something that's not proven. It's guaranteed that if they pump money into this industry, they will get it back tenfold. You know, so that's where we need to get. The elections coming up, I think we need everyone pushing politicians to back this plan that Mark Canham has, that the FAI have, because it's a fantastic plan that will change how football is run in the country.
I was interested in the recent elections. There was one or two politicians going for Europe that were kind of pushing it.
Yeah.
Smart individuals that I'd say, okay, have seen, obviously there's League of Ireland supporters as well, and we're using it. I think Aidan or Riordan got elected on the back of it. It definitely helped him. And
he made a great speech up in when he said football is Ireland. You know, he made a great speech. I think that his dad was only after passing away the day before, and he stood up in the Dáil, and he gave a fantastic speech. So it's a proven industry that we need to embrace now, and we're never going to beat the likes of Greece. I don't know how Stephen Kenny lost his job because we didn't beat Greece. They're paying their players $60,000 a week over in that country. They have 11 million population. They back their football. They have a proper domestic league, you know. And it baffles me how we have analysts saying that we should be beating Greece, and managers are losing their job because we don't beat a nation with such investment in the game, you know. And we're never going to beat these teams anymore. We don't have back in the day, fair enough, when we had Liverpool, Man United, Tottenham, Chelsea players playing for us. That's not the case anymore. So how are we meant to beat these teams?
So the support needs probably come to the likes of League of Ireland clubs as well. So back the academies of the likes of Liam, who are producing players, you know, that are playing, like, you know, Franco Uma, Marco Manni, Jake O'Brien, who are all starting to do well and appear under 21s and senior level. Yeah,
well, there's your proven product, Stephen. You know, get more people of the ilk of Liam Kearney involved, and look what they can do. Look at Jake O'Brien now. What's he going to go for? Who's he going to go to?
Yeah,
he was built here. You know, he was built out here in Bishopstown. He was built in Youghal, and
one of our own. Yeah.
There's your proven. How much is he going to go for? How much is that? And that's what we develop. That's what we can develop here if we can get more Liam Kearneys in around the country, you know.
You've been to the Cross a good few times this season. What are you thinking of the club?
Yeah, to be fair, they're doing everything they need to do. They're being very professional. The club seems to be in a solid place. Everyone seems to be doing what they need to do. Players wise, they're getting the job done on the pitch. Not easy for them because you win 2 or 3-0. You're not going to get huge praise being in the first division. It's a very different league to the Premier Division, and it's hard for the players, but they're being professional. They're getting the results, and really, it's a case of just keeping this going and putting the season behind us forever, and never ever have to revisit the first division. That's my hope.
That the club stay and get back to where we belong in the Premier Division.
Yeah, it's it's going to be one step to get to the Premier Division. It's going to be another step to stay in the Premier Division. But if we want to get back to where we are and be up in that top 3-4, that's that's a league in itself, but step one is for the lads that are on the pitch to keep getting those wins, put the season behind us, and then we need to put serious things in place to make sure that we become a force again, because at the moment it's not easy not being a force in football in this country, being a Cork City fan, so we need to do everything right to get us back to where we belong,
What players are standing out to you at the moment? Who are impressing you?
I'm very impressed with Charlie Lyons, I must say. I think I worked a small bit with Charlie in Cove. He was with us for a small bit when I was with Darren's team, and he's a great guy, and I think he's settling brilliantly, and I think he's been a rock. He's been a great signing for us, Obviously Coughlan and Jaden have been very exciting. And obviously Bulger's has been a great asset, and he kind of he solidifies things there. And obviously Sean Murray, I think, is playing out of his skin, And I'd great to see Conor Drynan coming back the last day, and Darragh Crowley being back on the pitch. I love how Darragh plays. He's a fantastic player. He's got that Cork City spirit and quality about him, So I really can't wait to see where Darragh goes with his career. I hope that he gets back to his best now after that setback he had.
We usually finish with a couple of questions, so I'll just throw one or two easy ones at you. Who would you say over the years was the toughest player you played against?
Toughest, as in physically tough?
Or just to mark that?
Well, I suppose as a centre forward, Liam Coyle back in the day and he'd 1.5 legs at that stage when I was trying to mark him. I still struggled to keep him at bay. So Liam Coyle was outstanding, and Trevor Malloy was another tough player to mask. But I suppose from a physical point of view, I loved playing against Richie Foran and Shells. We used to have we were guaranteed a booking each in those games. Battle. A big battle. Yeah, that was a big battle between them. So there was so many fantastic players. Glenn Crowe obviously was a great player, but there's always some players that you might find a bit difficult. A bit like if you're watching mixed martial arts and different traits, and Trevor Malloy would have been tough. Liam Coyle would have been a great player, So,
who was the best player you played with then? I know that's
so
many.
And
you don't want to upset people.
Well, I could name everyone. Like I could name so many. Anyone that has played at fighting for league titles in Ireland, they have to be of a certain quality, And so there was so many brilliant players. Kevin Doyle I remember I got sent off against him when he was playing with Pats. He was very hard to mark. Other players I played with, there was so many. I mentioned Roy earlier on, was a fantastic talent. Ollie Cal was amazing. Great, Patsy Frayne, Decky Daly. It depends on what traits you're talking about. The different positions, they're going to have to bring different skills and different traits. But I've played with so many fantastic players, I've been very lucky.
Great memories. It's been fantastic to go back over it, and best of luck with the new career, another chapter in your football life.
Yeah, it's exciting, Steve. I must say, it's great being with Dennis, and do you know what? It's exciting that the ceiling. There's no ceiling with what we can do, and it's really it's an exciting time for me as well. I'm
sure people definitely will check it out. Thanks a million, Derek, for coming in, and best of luck with the new business.
Thanks a mil. Cheers.
Brilliant. Listen,
yeah, Derek is brilliant. We've had him. We actually had him on commentary last week.
That's right,
at the Cross, and he was brilliant on that as well. But always brilliant to hear from him. Absolutely class.
Right, such a great story as well. And to be honest, there was bits I had forgotten, because you see, it's going over a good span of time, and I'd forgotten that he had been called up to the Irish under-21s when he was with City and all that kind of stuff as well, because he was unbelievable at the back.
Yeah,
and when he played in that cup final in '98, I actually thought he was older.
Do you know what? He retired so young.
Yeah, so I thought he retired at a normal age. So then
you just kind of when you work back from retirement, you always think he was older than he was. Yeah. But even there, when he was talking about when he was playing, he was flying to and from Dublin for training.
That was mad.
Yeah,
that was fucking crazy stuff.
It's mad. Yeah.
But and that they all knew him in the airports and stuff like that. But yeah, and you can see that it upset him when he had to leave City the first time, when it wasn't that they didn't want him, but they didn't give him the big contract. But that's kind of like they reduced his.
Yeah, you're kind of being
terms,
helped
and, like,
out the door in yeah.
Yeah, because they had brought in other younger players and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and yeah, but you know that was tough on him at the time. Like you could see that, but it was great that he come back.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But it was also interesting because he was the last kind of the players of the part-time era. You know what I mean?
He
was trying to balance.
He was
a
juggling,
career,
yeah, being
and
in the
he
fire
had to make
service.
the call.
Yeah,
he was well able for that first team.
Yeah.
So like when Alan Bennett and Dan Murray and all them were there, he would have really competed with them for a place, but he couldn't commit to the levels that they were committing. So he couldn't.
It's mad when you look back at like how, like in a previous generation of Cork City and League of Ireland, really, how good some of the players were, and they were balancing so much between work. Like if they had a crack at full-time football, full-time training, you know, the way today's players are looked after, not just at Cork City, but in world football, like how good would they have been?
Like if you think about it,
do you know what I mean? Like it's
like when City drew 1-1 with Bayern Munich, and I know everyone talks about it. No, that Bayern Munich had World Cup winners.
Yeah.
No, like
who made the joke? Was it Philip Long a few weeks ago? It was like they had World Cup winners, and Barry was doing was a plumber, like working as a plumber the day of the game, like.
You know, there was plumbers, there was sales guys, there was bank officials, there was a bit of a jack of all trades in that team, like.
And they all came together on a Friday night or a Sunday afternoon, I think it was at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To play for Cork City.
It was a midweek. They had to play it in the afternoon because we had no floodlights, I think, around
what
that
was
time.
that?
I was in school. I think it was on Wednesday afternoon, Tuesday or Wednesday. But like they used to have to play matches early because of that sometimes.
That's mad. Different worlds even now. Even League of Ireland now, never mind the wider football world.
I remember going to the game against Galatasaray and it was in the afternoon as well.
That one was in Bishopstown, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit later in the afternoon. I say it was about 3 or 4 o'clock or something like that. But I'd imagine it was something to do with floodlights as well. I'm guessing maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was logistics. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it. Slightly before my time.
Yeah, no. I was young enough now to be fair.
My
memory's bad. Yeah, but like it is mad how well they did against. Like they lost 2-1 to Galatasaray away. No, another professional club. Like
we're
unlucky at home as well against them. And like you're thinking against these big giants of European football, they played Slavia Prague, places like that. Like all these lads were professionals, training every day of the week.
Yeah,
our lads were out working.
Yeah, coming in off shift work or whatever, and training and stuff like that. It's mad. Yeah,
you know, but some of them probably said, okay, yeah, if I left, okay, and I went over to England or something like that, yeah, I might play down the lower leagues. And back then, football wasn't paid as much as it is now.
Yeah, the lower leagues in England now were
back then.
Washed with money,
I'd say lower leagues back then probably fellas were doing the plumbing or something as well.
Probably,
I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there's so much money in the game. I think some of the younger listeners even might realise the difference over the years.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's evolved, to be fair, really quickly as well. Like I remember, I think it was when Murph was on, they're talking about games in like 2005 and how different even that was to now. That's only 15, nearly 20 years ago now, actually.
Yeah.
It's really come on very quickly.
It's come on very fast.
Like the data and the science and everything that's applied to it now was nowhere near to the level back then as it is now.
But if you think in League of Ireland as well, we've gone through phases as well whereby, you know, after that part-time phase, when Dan said there, like he had to say, no, I'm retiring from the game.
Yeah.
After 2005, it got very serious in this country and people were investing a lot. And then there was silly money being thrown around as well for a while. And that
probably actually set, like, as great as that would have felt at the time for clubs, probably set everyone back a couple of years.
Because they got carried
cleaning
away
up the
with
mess
themselves.
after it, yeah.
Because the minute the financial crash came in, loads of clubs went. It wasn't just City went belly up. There was loads of them in trouble that time. I mean, for the most famous ones was probably Shelbourne originally, and then the likes of Bows got into trouble. There was loads of them. Rovers got into trouble. There was loads of them in trouble, and yeah, it's hard because you're trying to keep up with all around the world, and you know, and now we're starting to slowly. I think this time it feels like there's a slow.
We're building, but we're building at a pace that we can keep up with.
Even the Premier Division teams, looking at them, it doesn't look like they're getting carried away at all. Like, I know some of the Dublin clubs are paying big money.
Yeah.
But, like, thankfully there's no one splashing the cash on transfer fees or anything like that, like, yet, anyway.
Yeah. No, it does seem like we're, like, the league, in terms of, it's growing, but the interest is growing with it. The the foundations are going up with it so that it can be sustained, and that benefits us, that benefits the league, it benefits the players, and it makes things fun for supporters as well when teams can get up there and be competing, and hopefully we can be there soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Because as great as it is to talk about how the other teams are doing, I actually don't care. I don't want any of the other teams to do well. Do you know what I mean?
No. And I know it's this week a lot of them are playing in Europe and stuff like that, and like you kind of get jealous when you look at their accounts and you're seeing they're off in fucking Iceland or somewhere, like, you know. Like, you know, it's, you'd like City to be at that level again, like, you know. So hopefully we will be. We definitely will be. But to do that, we have to kind of step up and
we'll get out of here now first. And then we'll work that part out.
So we have a game against Finn Harps this weekend. We actually have 2 in a row against them, don't we? We
actually have a busy week coming up. We've got Harps on Friday, Stoke the following Wednesday, and then Harps that Saturday in the Cup.
Mad.
So, the Finn Harps bus driver is getting his really earning his money this week. I think actually they're in Limerick the week after as well. So
he's familiar with the roads.
It's probably cheaper for them to just stay down here, to be honest.
It should cost a fuel, like.
Harps on Friday. That'll be an interesting one. We played them twice away because that was the game that was affected by the switch.
Oh yeah, of course.
Drew the first one, won the second one, and now we've 2 left, 2 home games. And this is the first. Well, actually 3 home games including the cup.
Harps started the season very well, but they've kind of fallen off.
They've fallen off a bit. Yeah, Treaty started the season well as well, and they've fallen off. But Harps, it'll be an interesting one, I think, because the 2 games against them were actually really good.
Yeah,
obviously up on their pitch it's a bit different. After a long journey, which obviously they have to face this time, but it'll be a good one. We haven't been at the Cross now for 2 weeks?
2 weeks,
so
I think, yeah.
We'll hopefully see a bit of a good crowd, and the corner flag tickets are available as well. So if the weather manages to stay good, that's the ideal spot to watch from. So
yeah,
those are also available
summer so far, but there's glimpses of it.
Yeah, we're getting kind of teased with it. It's coming and going.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, busy week. So that's the Harps game. That once that's out of the way, then it's the Stoke friendly on the Wednesday. We'll be wearing the blackout kit in that finally, so we'll get to see that.
I'd imagine some academy players will get a run out now.
I'd imagine so, yeah. I don't know in terms of Stoke if it'll be academy players or first team or what, but
they'll have a mix, I'd say.
I'd say so.
I'd say it'll be half and half, I'd say.
Yeah, and that's on the Wednesday. So 7:45 kickoff on the Wednesday.
And like they're a championship team, obviously a lot of people might know them from a wet shoes and they playing in Stoke or something.
And they do it on a sunny Wednesday night at Turner's Cross.
So yeah,
watch now it's not sunny again.
It's probably wet Wednesday night in Turner's Cross. But yeah, it's been a while, a few years since they've been in the Premier League, but a decent championship side. They'll be strong, like.
They've actually got a surprisingly big fan base in Cork. I know a couple of Stoke fans living out my way.
Yeah.
And the last time they were here in 2022, and there was a massive Stoke crowd. So I'd imagine there'll be I think there's a lot of away tickets sold again for Wednesday. So
they have a bit of an Irish connection as well. Jonathan Walters is director of football or something, and I think there's one or 2 Irish players in the squad as well, I think.
I'd be honest now, I can't even think of who's there, but I know there has been over the years as well. Obviously, Rory Delap was the famous one that everyone talks about, who didn't even feature much.
Peter Crouch would have been obviously the famous player over the years as well. Like, you know, he kind of made his name with Stoke. I know he went on to other clubs as well. Like,
yeah, you recognise him in the Stoke and Liverpool jerseys. I think are the one people think of when they think of Peter Crouch. But so tickets are available for those as well on all the usual spots and in the club shop. And then after that, the cup, hopefully a cup run kicks off.
Yes.
Finn Harps at home again on Saturday the 20th, 5 o'clock.
Oh yeah, a Saturday. That's an unusual action on a Saturday.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason for that is, to be honest.
Probably give them a chance, is it? With part-time football and stuff like that.
I honestly don't know. Could be something to do with the Stoke friendly as well, maybe. I really don't know.
I see 1 or 2 man.
I always say decisions like this, I just colour in the pictures around here. I don't know.
Last week there, whose man was it? Was it Kerry's manager or Treaty's manager? Was
Kerry giving out about going to Harps on Thursday. Yeah, I get it, but it's just
the league is the league. Like, I suppose that's what you're playing, and
yeah, it is. It is tough, especially when we're in a sort of a privileged position here to be able to say our players are full time.
A lot of what day of the week it is.
Most of the other clubs, if not all the other clubs in the first division, don't have any full time players.
Yeah.
So, it is very difficult.
Yeah, so it's tricky. I suppose Thursday, that means, especially for a long trip, they're probably not going to get back to work. We were just talking about the work thing the hour ago.
Oh, the time you get back, speaking from experience, the time you get back from Finn Harps.
You're losing 2 days.
Finn Harps and Derry, like the next days, typically if you go on a Friday, the Saturday is a write-off because you're only getting into bed the Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those are the men's games that are to come. And then obviously we've got the big one at the Cross this Saturday in the women's game.
So 2 Saturdays in a row at the Cross. So,
yeah, and this one's on TV. So that's
what time is the kickoff?
7:35. So
that's nice.
Typically 5 o'clock kickoff for women's games, but because it's on TG4, it's pushed to 7:35. Against Bows, the usual Cork Dublin rivalry, but you know yourself when Bows come to town at any level or any whatever. And it's a big one, and there's a bit of bite to it. So
and there's no third place playoff in the Euros, so that won't be clashing with anything on TV or anything. So that'll be good.
Yeah, and look, again, we're on TV, and it's always good to have Turner's Cross looking full and looking packed out on TV. So if you're available and you're interested in coming down and supporting the girls, please do, because they're more than deserving of it, especially after last weekend's victory over Peamount. I know for a fact everyone wants to go out and beat Bows again on Saturday, so it's going to be a really good one.
And speaking of the girls, the Irish women's team are in town as well next week as well. So
yeah, next week's a very busy week, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of football on.
A lot of football, yeah.
You know, best of luck to them against France.
It's brilliant to have them in Cork.
Yeah.
And to have Eva in the squad.
To have one of her own in the squad is brilliant. And then to have the likes of Denise O'Sullivan coming back to play in her home patch.
Yeah, is Megan Connolly in the squad?
Megan's in the squad.
I think she is, yeah. It's brilliant, like having everything in Cork. Like, I love it. I'd love if they played every game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. But
in fairness to the FAI, did a cool video. Did you see that video?
They did. You know what? I've an issue with this video, right? Eva Mangan plays for Cork City, and they used the scoreboard in Turner's Cross. It's her home ground, and they didn't put Eva Mangan on the scoreboard. They put her somewhere else.
Yeah. And
do you know what? That is a joke, but the video.
Yeah. And it's brilliant. They used the kids from the cabin up in Hollyhill.
Unreal, it's class. It's class. But no, stuff like the FAI, to be fair, they've done that with the last couple of
I like those
videos. They're brilliant.
They're popular before the Euros as well, like and the World Cups nowadays. The national squads, aren't they? I see them all around
all
the
big
world,
events like Euros, World Cup, and coming to Cork.
Yeah,
and all the big events. That's what it is.
Yeah, I know, it's brilliant. You know,
delighted.
And
hope Eva gets a run.
Yeah,
not even just as a novelty. Like, she obviously deserves it. She's in the squad. She's obviously doing well to be selected. So hopefully we get to see her.
I suppose we should congratulate the Cork hurlers as well for getting to the final as well.
Yeah, brilliant, wasn't it?
That's good. Look, Cork.
We all support each other,
You know, and I'm sure they support us and vice versa.
Yeah, look, there's a great relationship with them. It was great to hear after all blaring out around Croke Park.
That was the thing that caught my attention. Like, I won't be a massive GA fan, but I saw the clips afterwards of that. Like,
yeah, it's class. It's like the one song that just unites everyone in Cork. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, I see the Franks actually putting it out. Like, great to hear this. In Croke Park, because it's obviously synonymous with us. And then the young offenders took it.
It was played after every game of the Cross as well. Obviously, a little bit different to playing at a Croke Park and having a full Croke Park singing it. But
maybe the Aviva at the end of the year after the cup final.
Sure, look.
That's what the goal should be.
We will be there no matter what.
So a busy week of football. Some good weather, nice long evenings at the moment, so make the most of it, I'd say.
Yeah, that's the thing as well on Saturday. I know it's a later kickoff, but it's going to be bright. It's not like it's a nighttime game. Do you know what I mean? It's perfect
great
for the family
atmosphere as well. Bring the kids down.
Yeah, it's good fun. Women's games are really fun.
Don't need to worry about bedtimes in this time of the year, the schools and all that.
Exactly, yeah. We spoke about it before as well. Like, the girls are so generous with their time after the games. They'll be over there. Like, Colleen signs autographs for the best part of half an hour, if not longer. Plus,
the kids are
games.
free to the women's games, aren't they?
They are, they get in free, yeah.
So maybe even you might have visitors down from up the country or something like that, because I know at this time of the year people are traveling.
Bring the cousins, bring the family, whatever
bring
it is.
Bring them over. It could be a night out. It could be something different.
Yeah, look, the atmosphere, it's different to how it is on a Friday night.
Yeah.
It's much more enjoyable in a family sense.
Yes.
It's not as hostile to shed. It's not like what we love on a Friday night. We love this on a Saturday for different reasons. But yeah, look, it's brilliant.
There's less cost.
And exactly. Well,
maybe not.
Not if you're up by the country by where I go. But anyway, look,
it's the side of the pitch.
Exactly, yeah. But look, again, we encourage everyone to come. It's a brilliant day out, and if it's a nice sunny Saturday evening like it is here as we're recording this, then it'd be a great place to be.
No, looking forward to all the football, and sure, we'll be back next week with another episode, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll see you again next week.